All right, this is Block 4 over there, Section 2, the Russian Revolution of 1917. This is a topic that you could take an entire class on in and of itself. The Russian Revolution and how the Russia went from an autocratic rule by the Tsar to an even more autocratic rule by Vladimir Lenin, and how Russia became the Soviet Union. But this is not a time for such a long class like that. This is the time for the short version of the Russian Revolution. After years of bad government, corrupt officials, and catastrophic war losses, it was really the war that pushed the Russian people over the edge. The Russian war machine was corrupt and inefficient, and millions of soldiers died of battle wounds, disease, hundreds of thousands were captured. And Tsar Nicholas II, in a colossal mistake in 1915, took personal command of the armies. So when the armies, when losses began to happen, anger was directed directly at the Tsar. People were poor, people were beginning to starve. So in 1917, in the capital city of St. Petersburg, there was a revolt against the Tsar. And Tsar Nicholas abdicated his throne. Unwillingly, unhappily, abdicated his throne. He was replaced in 1917 at first by a government led by a man by the name of Alexander Kerensky. Kerensky, and here's Kerensky. Alexander Kerensky was a liberally minded person. He wanted to turn Russia into a democracy. And he kind of took over the reins of government. Kerensky's biggest mistake was he said publicly at the outset, Russia is staying in the war. He felt that he had an obligation to his allies, France and Britain, and he said that Russian troops would continue to fight the war. And from the outset, that made Kerensky's government unpopular. That unpopularity was turned into another revolt in November of that year. October in the Russian calendar, November of the rest of the world's character. A communist agitator and writer by the name of Vladimir Lenin was sent in a sealed train from Germany to his native Russia. He had been kicked out of Russia because he was a communist. Germany had taken him in. He had been arrested in Germany, but now that the Germans kind of saw an opportunity, they sent Lenin in a sealed train across the frontier into St. Petersburg, where he started to kind of gather support and kind of get the workers of St. Petersburg and the peasants of the surrounding area fired up to overthrow Kerensky's government. And in November of 1917, Lenin's party took power, very quickly eliminated all opposition to him, and by the end of and one of the things Lenin does, he promises to the people of Russia bread and peace, as in there will be no more starvation and no more war. And the people of Russia, to a very large extent, despite the fact that he was a communist, flocked to his banner. By the end of 1917, Russia was out of the war. This had the Russian Revolution was going to suffer an incredible civil war. So let's go on that very quickly. After Lenin takes power, Russia sinks into a catastrophic civil war. The communists on one side and the anti-communists on another, and they're going to fight this vicious, vicious, vicious civil war. There are two effects of the Russian Revolution on World War I. The first being, as soon as the Tsar is gone and the Tsar's autocracy is gone, President Wilson no longer has a moral reason not to go to war against Germany. Woodrow Wilson said publicly many times that he would not support any war that was fighting on the same side as the autocratic Tsar. And as soon as the Tsar was gone in March of 1917, and Kerensky was running the government, it kind of allowed Wilson to publicly come out, take unrestricted submarine warfare, the Zimmerman telegram, and now the United States would not be fighting on the same side as imperial autocratic Russia. It opened up Wilson's hand, if you will. The other important thing that the Russian Revolution did for the First World War, since Russia left the war, let's get this good map up here. Here we go. Since Russia left, well, where'd it go? Oh, there you are. Since Russia left the war, all of the troops that were on this side, all of the German and especially German, all of the German troops that were fighting the Russians over here no longer have to be there to fight the Russians. And as soon as the Russians are out of the war, all of the German troops, millions of them that are on this side of the fight, start traveling by train across Germany towards the battlefields in France, where the British and the French are barely holding on. The Germans think this is their chance to win the war. Unrestricted submarine warfare will cut Britain's food supplies off, and then all the troops from the Eastern Front will finally break the trench warfare in northern France. That's their plan, that's their goal, and they come very, very close to achieving that. So the Russian Revolution kind of has three hugely important consequences. First, it turns Russia into the Soviet Union in time. Second, it pulls Russia out of the war. And third, Russia being out of the war allows Germany to take troops and send them across Germany to fight in France. Of course, the Soviet Union will play a massive role in the rest of our study of US2.